Portugal's biggest danger in 2026 is not weakness, it is belief. For years, Portugal fans dreamed of this exact moment, a squad deep enough, talented enough, and experienced enough to finally give Cristiano Ronaldo the World Cup ending football has always denied him. And now, as things stand, that dream feels closer than it has in a long time. That is what makes it dangerous, because the public misunderstanding is obvious. People look at Portugal and see star power. They see Ronaldo's final chapter. They see Roberto Martínez with a squad full of technical midfielders, explosive wide players, elite fullbacks, and enough attacking options to scare almost anyone. They see a nation that finally looks ready to stop chasing history and start writing it. But World Cups do not care how beautiful your squad looks on paper. They care about pressure. They care about what happens when the first plan dies. When the game slows down, when the favorite starts looking nervous, when the crowd can feel the weight of a country's dream sitting on every pass. That is the uncomfortable truth Portugal fans need to hear. This team may finally be strong enough to help Ronaldo carry the dream, but that strength changes everything. It removes the old excuse. It removes the underdog mask. It turns hope into expectation. And expectation is a different opponent. Portugal have often been most dangerous when the world doubted them, when nobody fully trusted them, when they could fight from the shadows. But in 2026, they may not get that luxury anymore. This time, everyone can see the talent. This time, everyone can see the dream. And that means the real question is not whether Portugal are good enough. It is whether everyone is asking the wrong question. And that is where most people get Portugal wrong. They keep asking the easy question. Is Ronaldo still dangerous? Is the squad deep enough? Does Portugal have enough stars? Can Roberto Martínez manage all that talent? But that is not the real question. Because Portugal's problem has rarely been the absence of quality. This is a nation that has produced elite technicians, ruthless forwards, Champions League winners, and players trusted at the highest level of European football. The shirt has never looked empty. The problem is what happens when all that talent has to become one decision, one rhythm, one sacrifice, one team. That is why Euro 2024 mattered. Portugal did not leave because they had no famous names. They left after a 0-0 battle with France that went all the way to penalties. It was not humiliation. It was something more frustrating. A team with enough quality to scare anyone, but not enough clarity to turn control into a knockout punch. And 2022 told a similar story in a different way. Against Switzerland, Portugal looked reborn. Gonçalo Ramos started, scored a hat trick, and suddenly everyone thought the future had arrived overnight. Then Morocco came next, and the dream ended 1-0. That is the pattern Portugal fans need to confront. One night, they look liberated. The next, they look trapped inside their own expectations. So, no, the question is not whether Portugal have talent. Everyone can see the talent. The question is whether Portugal have an identity strong enough to survive when talent alone stops being enough. And history has already shown us when this country becomes most dangerous. And that is the strange thing about Portugal. They have never looked more dangerous than when nobody fully believed in them. Euro 2016 is still the clearest warning. Portugal did not storm through that tournament like a giant. They survived it. They drew all 3 group stage games, squeezed through, absorbed pressure, and kept finding one more breath when the match should have swallowed them. Then came the final in Saint-Denis. France had the home crowd, France had the momentum, France had the stage, and Portugal lost Cristiano Ronaldo early, the one player everyone believed they could not survive without. For a few minutes, it felt like the dream had been ripped out of the shirt. But that was when Portugal became something else. Not beautiful, not overwhelming, just impossible to kill. They defended, suffered, waited, and in extra time, Adair scored the goal that gave Portugal a 1-0 win and their first major international trophy. That night mattered because it proved something Portugal fans should never forget. Sometimes this country becomes strongest when the story stops being about individual genius and starts being about collective survival. Portugal did not win because everything went perfectly. They won because everything went wrong, and they still refused to break. That same idea followed them into the first UEFA Nations League in 2019. Again, Portugal were not treated like football's inevitable empire. Again, they found a way. In the final against the Netherlands, Gonçalo Guedes scored the only goal, And Portugal lifted another trophy, not with noise, not with glamour, with control, patience, and tournament nerve. That is the pattern. Portugal are most dangerous when they are doubted, when the world looks somewhere else, when the pressure is not asking them to dominate, only to survive. But 2026 may not give them that shelter. This time, the spotlight is already waiting. And when the underdog mask disappears, the first face football will look at is Ronaldo. And that is why Ronaldo changes the entire temperature of this story. Because with Portugal, the conversation always finds him. It does not matter how many midfielders they produce. It does not matter how many attackers emerge. It does not matter how balanced the squad looks. The moment Portugal enter a World Cup, the spotlight turns toward Cristiano Ronaldo like gravity. That is the privilege of being a legend. It is also the burden. For nearly 2 decades, Ronaldo has been Portugal's shortcut to belief. When the game was dead, people waited for him. When the attack looked flat, people searched for him. When the country needed a miracle, the camera found him before it found the system. But 2026 cannot be built that way. Ronaldo can still matter. If selected, he can still give Portugal presence, leadership, fear, and the kind of box instinct defenders never fully relax around. His name alone changes how opponents defend. His history alone changes how a stadium feels. But a World Cup is not one moment. It is travel, heat, short recovery, tactical traps, knockout pressure, opponents who spend days preparing to erase your first option. And Portugal have already seen both sides of this problem. In 2016, Ronaldo left the Euro final injured after only 25 minutes, and Portugal still found a way to beat France 1-0 in extra time through Eder. That night did not make Ronaldo smaller. It made Portugal bigger. It proved the dream could survive even when its greatest symbol was forced off the pitch. Then came 2022. Ronaldo was left out of the starting lineup against Switzerland. Gonçalo Ramos came in, scored a hat-trick, and Portugal won 6-1. For one night, the future looked fearless. But in the very next round, Morocco beat Portugal 1-0, and the old pain returned. That is the warning. Portugal do not need Ronaldo to disappear. They need Ronaldo to stop being the emergency plan. Because if every road still leads back to one man, this golden generation has not truly evolved. But if Portugal can finally carry the weight with him, around him, and sometimes even beyond him, then 2026 becomes something different. For 20 years, Ronaldo carried Portugal's impossible dream. Now Portugal may have to prove they can carry it for him. And that responsibility begins with the manager who has already lived through one golden generation that never finished the job. And that is where Roberto Martínez becomes more than a coach. He becomes a warning. Because Portugal is not the first golden generation placed in his hands. Belgium already lived that story. Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard, Romelu Lukaku, Thibaut Courtois, a squad with enough individual quality to make the world believe a trophy was inevitable. For a while, Belgium looked close. Under Martinez, they reached 3rd place at the 2018 World Cup, the best finish in the country's history. That was not failure, that was a milestone. But it was also not the ending that generation was supposed to have. Because the deeper truth about golden generations is brutal. They are not remembered for how talented they looked. They are remembered for what they won. And by the time Belgium left the 2022 World Cup in the group stage, the story had changed. What once looked like a team of destiny had become a warning about wasted timing, aging legs, and a manager who could build belief but could not deliver the final blow. Now Martinez has Portugal. Different country, different pressure, same question. Can he finish the job? This is not about whether he can manage good players. He has done that before. This is about whether he can turn elite players into a tournament machine when the margins shrink, when the substitutions matter, when the biggest names are no longer enough by themselves. Because with Portugal, he has inherited another squad full of weapons. Ronaldo's presence, Bruno's risk, Bernardo's control, Vitinha's rhythm, João Neves' energy, Leão's chaos, Nuno Mendes' explosiveness, Rúben Dias' authority. But names do not win World Cups. Systems do. Decisions do. Timing does. For Martinez, 2026 is not just Portugal's test. It is his second trial with a generation good enough to be judged harshly. If he gets it right, he rewrites his legacy. If he gets it wrong, Portugal may become the new Belgium. And that is why the stars cannot stay as stars anymore. They have to become a system. And this is where Portugal's hype becomes complicated. Because when you look at the names, it is almost too easy to believe. Bruno Fernandes can break a match with one pass. Bernardo Silva can slow the game down until everyone else starts playing at his rhythm. Vitinha gives Portugal the kind of midfield control every tournament team dreams of. João Neves brings bite, energy, and the feeling that every loose ball belongs to him. On paper, that sounds like balance. But football is not played on paper. The question is not whether Portugal have midfielders good enough to dominate the ball. They do. The question is whether all those talents can live inside the same rhythm without making the team slower, narrower, or easier to read. Because control without penetration becomes possession with no punishment. And Portugal have felt that before. Against France at Euro 2024, the score stayed 0-0 through 120 minutes. Portugal were not outclassed. They were not embarrassed, but that was the problem. They had enough quality to stay in the fight, not enough clarity to kill it before penalties decided their tournament. That is the difference between talent and system. A system tells Bruno when to risk the pass. It tells Bernardo when to drift and when to release. It tells Vitinha when to control and when to accelerate. It tells João Neves when to hunt and when to hold. Without that structure, Portugal can look beautiful between the boxes and uncertain inside the final third. Then there is Rafael Leão. At his best, he is chaos with boots on. One sprint, one touch, one 1v1, and the entire shape of a match can collapse. But World Cups are not won by highlights alone. They are won by decisions, by defensive effort, by timing, by knowing when to explode and when to suffer without the ball. The same is true up front. Gonçalo Ramos, João Felix, Pedro Neto, or whoever Martinez trusts around Ronaldo cannot just be names in reserve. They have to become answers. If Portugal's attack always ends by searching for Ronaldo, opponents will prepare for that. If the danger comes from everywhere, Portugal become harder to trap. And behind all of it, the defense has its own question. The fullbacks can give width and aggression, but tournament football always asks the cruelest question of center backs. Can you survive when the game turns ugly? That is why this team cannot remain a collection of weapons. Weapons win moments, systems win tournaments. And if Portugal are going to survive the pressure waiting in 2026, the stars have to stop looking like stars and start moving like one machine. Because the night that exposes them will not arrive when the game is easy, and that night will come. Maybe not in the group stage. Maybe not when Portugal have space, rhythm, and the ball moving cleanly from midfield into attack. Maybe not when the opponent respects them too much and drops too deep. The truth usually arrives later, in a knockout game, against a team that does not care about Portugal's names. That is where this entire story will be tested. Ronaldo marked tightly. Leão denied open grass. Bruno pressed before he can lift his head. Bernardo forced to receive the ball far away from the danger zone. The fullbacks trapped between wanting to attack and fearing the counter. Suddenly, all the beautiful pieces stop looking comfortable, and then Portugal will have to answer the only question that matters. What happens when the first plan is gone? They have felt that kind of suffocation before. Against Morocco in the 2022 World Cup quarter-final, Portugal had the stars, the possession, the urgency. But Morocco scored through Youssef En-Nesyri before halftime, protected the lead, and Portugal never found the goal that could save them. One match turned a dream into silence. At Euro 2024, France gave them a different version of the same test. Not chaos, not collapse, just a locked, cold, goalless quarter-final that went through extra time and ended on penalties. Portugal did not fall apart, but they also did not break the wall. That is the danger waiting in 2026. Not being dominated, being contained. Because World Cups do not always expose weak teams first. They expose talented teams that thought talent would eventually solve everything. That night, Portugal will need more than Ronaldo's aura, more than Leão's speed, more than Bruno's risk, more than Bernardo's calm. They will need a team with a second answer, a third answer, and the nerve to choose the right one under pressure. And if they do not find it, the cost will not belong to one player. It will belong to an entire generation. And that is where this stops being just a tactical question. Because if Portugal fail in 2026, the pain will not be measured only by the scoreline. It will be measured by legacy. For Ronaldo, if selected, This could be the last World Cup chapter of a career that has already outlived normal football logic. He has carried Portugal through eras, managers, generations, systems, doubts, and impossible expectations. He has been the symbol every opponent feared and every Portuguese fan searched for when the game felt lost. But that also means the spotlight is cruel. If Portugal win, the story becomes immortal. If Portugal fall, even if the failure belongs to the team, the world will still place the camera on Ronaldo first. That is the cost of being the face of a nation for so long. You do not only carry the dream when it rises, you carry the silence when it breaks. But this is not only Ronaldo's burden. For Martinez, failure would reopen the old wound. Belgium already gave him one golden generation that never ended with the trophy people expected. Portugal gives him another chance, but also another risk. If this team collapses under pressure, the question will not be whether he had enough talent. The question will be why another talented squad could not become ruthless when it mattered most. And then there is the new generation: Bruno, Bernardo, Vitinha, João Neves, Leão, Dias, Nuno Mendes, the players who are supposed to make Portugal more than Ronaldo's shadow. If they do not go deep, this group could be remembered as something painful. Not a bad team, not a weak team, but a team that looked too good to fall short. That is the cruelest kind of failure. The kind that feels avoidable. Portugal fans are not just watching another tournament build-up. They are watching the possible closing of one era and the examination of another. They are asking whether the country can finally protect the dream Ronaldo spent his life chasing. And now, the final question is simple. Can Portugal survive their own hype before it turns into regret? So, this is the truth Portugal fans need to hear. Portugal do not need more belief. They already have it. They do not need the world to notice their talent. The world already sees it. They do not need people to respect Ronaldo's story. That story has been written across 2 decades. They do not need another reminder that this squad has names capable of hurting anyone. The real test is colder than that. Portugal must prove they can win after everyone expects them to win. That is a different kind of pressure. It does not feel like the old Portugal, fighting from the shadows, surviving on doubt, turning disbelief into fuel. This version has to walk into the light. This version has to carry the favorite label. This version has to play with the hunger of an underdog while being treated like a giant. And that is where World Cups become cruel. They do not crown the team with the best highlight reel. They do not reward the country with the most emotional storyline. They do not care if one legend is chasing the only trophy missing from his international dream. They ask one question. When the moment gets heavy, who stays clear? That is Portugal's trial. Not Ronaldo alone, not Martinez alone, not Leão, Bruno, Bernardo, Vitinha, João Neves, Dias, or any single name on the team sheet. All of them, together. Because if Portugal finally win it, the story will not simply be that Ronaldo got his ending. It will be that Portugal became strong enough to carry the dream he carried for them. But if they fall short, the warning will be just as sharp. Talent was never the question. Hype was never the answer. And in 2026, Portugal may discover that the hardest opponent is not France, Brazil, Argentina, Spain, England, or anyone else waiting across the bracket. The hardest opponent may be the weight of everyone believing this is finally their time.